In January, the city of Boston was elected to be the U.S. bid city for the 2024 Summer Olympics. But the Olympic venues being proposed would not be just in Boston. Athletes and visitors would be housed across the greater Boston region, and some of the Olympic events, such as cycling and BMX, would take place at a cycling track called the Velodrome and at a BMX course. Both would be constructed in assembly. Somerville Neighborhood News wanted to know what the alderman for that area, Matt McLaughlin, thought of the possibility. I caught up with him the other day.
I'm not 100% opposed to it, but I have grave concerns, and I don't see those concerns being alleviated. The number one reason is just that the Olympics have not proven to be a financially viable option for almost any city they go to. And I could show you data that shows that almost any city that the Olympics have gone to since the modern Olympic era, a lot of people make money, but the city doesn't really make money. And a lot of people have put through a lot of burdens in order to host the Olympics, and there's not much payoff for the local residents. So that's the number one reason, and then there's 1,000 other reasons. They build these stadiums and these fields everywhere, and then they leave and it's never used again. So Assembly Square is like our money pot. It's the place where we have the most open space to become a commercially viable tax base in the city. And they want to build this cycle track, which will be used once, and we'll never really find a good use for it. I lived in Atlanta for a while in the 2000s after they had the Olympics in '96, and a lot of residents that I met down there told me, one, that it was a huge intrusion on their lives, that their civil liberties were at times violated. There was displacement. People were moved from the places where they previously lived in order to host the Olympics, and that they have this, Olympic Village, which was supposed to bring in a lot of tourism. And as someone who lived there and toured there, the Olympic Village and the Olympic Garden was a distant second to the Coca-Cola factory and the aquarium and any number of other things that the point being is that the Olympics did not bring people to Atlanta. They're not going to bring people to Sochi, and a place like Boston. I wonder why we're even considering Boston. And just one last thing I would say is that I looked up. I didn't instinctively say I'm against the Olympics. I researched it, and I looked up, what are the benefits and what are the cons? And there were a massive number of cons, and the only benefits they had were these superficial ideas that, the Olympics are fun, it's a great thing, world stage, no tangible evidence, no proof that it's actually going to help. It's just a really cool thing. And they even had an Olympic official say, it's like, how can you put a price on the Olympics? And I tell people, it's like, unless I'm getting a gold medal, I can definitely put a price on the Olympics because it's going to come and go and leave us behind.
We spoke to Alderman McLaughlin hours before the first public meeting about the Olympic bid. We're here in Boston tonight at the Suffolk University Law School, where local residents have gathered to share their thoughts about the upcoming 2024 Boston Olympic bid. It was almost like a boxing match. Members of the Boston 2024 Olympic Committee, Boston city officials, and over 100 residents squared off on February 5th in the first of 9 meetings to discuss the city's Olympic bid.
We want to hear from you under any circumstance of how you feel about this game so we can make a better decision going forward. So thank you all for just participating.
Members of the 2024 committee showed slides and made speeches to try to convince the crowd that the Summer Olympics would be great for the city of Boston.
The forward-thinking, proud, indomitable spirit of the people. This is the heartbeat of Boston.
Hosting the Olympic Games has to fit acutely into that conversation. If we as a community establish where we would be in 2030, the question really is, how does the Olympics fit into that conversation? And if the Olympics don't fit into that conversation, I'm not sure it's a good thing for us to pursue.
Boston Mayor Marty Walsh also addressed the crowd, promising that the February 5th meeting was only the first of many. Members of the audience asked questions and made comments about infrastructure, traffic, programs for youth, and other matters.
How does the water transportation, do you envision that helping alleviate some of the traffic concerns that people have?
Do you have a vision yet
or even a first draft of what the picture will look like for youth programs and legacy programs of the games.
It would be better off and would be moving forward if we bring all those work, or we bring all the infrastructure, or we bring all those good plans with the Olympics. So please, as a good Bostonian, let's keep that Olympic come forward.
Thank you for coming.
But many of those attending are opposed to the games, like Debbie Socolar of Quincy.
I'm very concerned at the bidding process, even in addition to the actual Olympics coming here. Both of those amount to enormous distractions from enormous need. Affordable housing and infrastructure improvements and better schools and housing the homeless and so on, many needs really deserve the attention of our community's leaders instead of having people get tied up putting together events like this.
Bostonian Paul Simmons is also worried.
I don't think that the city's infrastructure can support it, either financially or physically.
But Deva Hirsch, also from Boston, backs the bid.
I'm for the Olympics, and I think part of that comes from being from Atlanta and seeing what an amazing experience hosting the Olympics was for the entire city. It really provides a deadline for communities to increase their infrastructure capabilities, and so clearly there are things that are needed in Boston, but I think that hosting the Olympics would provide a deadline for these things to come to fruition.
With 8 other public meetings still to come, a divided public plus other meetings with communities, whether the Olympics will be in Boston is anyone's guess. For Somerville Neighborhood News, I'm Justin Shrair. Somerville Neighborhood News wanted to see what Somerville residents thought about the possibility of the Olympics coming to town. Kayla Mamelak spoke to people at a recent Somerville High School girls hockey game.
Thanks, Justin. Talk of the Olympics coming to Boston in 2024 have been heating up. If it does in fact take place, some of the competitions will take place right here in Somerville. I spoke to some of the residents, and you will never believe what I found out. What do you think about the Olympics coming to Boston in 2024?
I think for the economy it might be great, but for the people that live here, I don't think it's good. I mean, right now, even looking at the issues with the subway, how are you going to get people from one venue to another?
I think it would be very exciting. However, I am concerned about the price tag. If somebody could guarantee that we wouldn't be left with white elephant stadiums and a huge price tag, I think it would be a great thing to do.
Pros and cons. I am a little concerned, be a little crowded, so hopefully they can spread out some of the venues over to like Harvard, Tufts, and that type of area.
I think in theory it's a good idea. We could probably use the the boost to the economy, but I just don't know if it's feasible. After watching the last couple of days with the snow and kind of the traffic and the problems with the T, I don't know if we could have the proper transportation.
In Somerville, I'd be in favor of it. It would be okay. I wouldn't mind it there. It's close to home. I could walk.
I think it'll be great, and I think it'll be great for the kids in the city to actually see the Olympics and have something close to home.
Everything's pretty accessible in Somerville. You can walk almost anywhere. You can get the train anywhere. I worry about parking, driving because I live there, but other than that, I think it would be amazing.
Definitely, I'd actually leave for 2 weeks.
Really?
I wouldn't want to be here. Wouldn't want to be anywhere around here.
Would you buy tickets to any of the games, and if so, which ones are you interested in?
Oh, definitely. Summer Olympics, anything. I would go see anything. If it was something I could get to and get tickets to, I'd go to any event. And my kids would too, they'd love it.
I would definitely have my kids involved, and I have 3 children, so I would like them to see that. I mean, it is a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and there's certainly a novelty to it, but again, it's just the cost and, what the aftermath of it.
To learn more about the bid, check out the Boston 2024 website, 2024boston.org. To read about why No Boston Olympics opposes the matter, go to its website, nobostonolympics.org.